finding a software if we do that small.
I'm playing guitar, so you can't hold my hand. I'm ready. I'm wondering.
Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim Mitzion Tetzei Torah Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim Rabbi Muskan, I'll take Tetzei Torah Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim Mitzion 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 Tetzei Torah Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim Mitzion.
I know, I'm going to turn around, okay?
Watch out.
You know me, you're not kidding me.
Vayihi ben so Aharon vayomer Moshe Kumo Adonai liafutu oivecha viyanusu misanecha mibanecha ki mitzion teitzei sora ki mitzion teitzei sora udavar Yerushalayim Baruch Shenasan Torah Baruch Shenasan Torah Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad hu Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlu Adonai iti, Unaroma mo Shemo Yachdo.
The Kriyas HaTorah will be without a bracha, but we'll be laning the last 12 verses of the Torah with a chazak at the end.
Vayal Moshe, Mervot Moav El Har Tzvo, Rosh HaPisgah, Asher Al Pnei Yericho, Vayarehu Adonai, Et Kol Haaretz, Et HaGilad Adan, V'yei Kol Naphtali, V'yei Eretz Ephraim u'Menashe, V'yei Kol Eretz Yehuda, Ad Hayam Acharon. V'yet HaNegev, V'yet HaKikar, Bikat Yericho, Ir HaTmarim, Ad Zohar, V'yomer Adonai Elav, Zot HaAretz Asher Nishbati, LeAvraham, LeYitzchak, LeYaakov, LeMor, LeZar'acha Etnena, Heriticha beinecha, v'shama lo ta'avor, v'yamat sham Moshe, Eved Adonai, be'eretz Moav, al pi Adonai, v'yikbor oto, v'gai be'eretz Moav, mul beit Peor, v'lo yada ish ekevurato, ad hayom hazeh, u'Moshe, Ben Me'ah v'Yisrim, Shana b'moto, Lo chata'eno, V'lo naslecho, V'yivku, V'nei Yisrael et Moshe, Be'arvot Moav 30 yom, V'yitemu, Yemei v'chi, Evel Moshe, V'Yoshua bin Nun, Malei ruach chachma, ki samach Moshe, et yadav alav, vayishmeu elav, b'nei Yisrael vayasu, kasher, tziva Adonai et Moshe, v'lo kam naviot b'Yisrael ke Moshe, asher yadao Adonai, panim el panim, L'chol ha'otot v'hamoftim, asher shlacho Adonai, la'asot b'eretz Mitzrayim, l'faro u'l'chol avadav, u'l'chol artzo, u'l'chol hayad ha'chazaka, u'l'chol hamora ha'gadol, asher asa Moshe le'nei Kol Yisrael.
Chazak, chazak, v'nis chazak.
Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazak.
V'zos ha'torah asher asa Moshe libnei b'nei Yisrael, pi Adonai b'yad. Please join Dr. Mark Oldenburg in Yedid Nefesh.
Yedid nefesh, Avrech Amon, ורצונך ירוץ עבדך כמו אייל ישתחווה אל מול הדרך ירב לו ידידותיך מנפשו וכל טעם הדור נאה זיווה לו ונפשי חולת אבוסך נוער נורפנה לה והרוס לה נועם זיווך עשית חזק וסיס רבה להוי סלום שמחה סלום כי זה כמה נחשפתי אין לחמדה ליבי לחוסנה ואל תצלם יגאלנה ופרוס חביבי עלי סוכת שלומך תאיר ארץ בכבודך נגילה ונשמחה בך מהר אהוב כי במועד וחננו כימי עולם דללי לי 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 דללי לי לי דללי לי 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 יאללה לי לי דללי לי 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 דללי לי 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 דללי לי 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 יאללה לי לי דללי לי 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 Tini la 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 la, tini la 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 la, tini la 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 la, tini la 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 la, tini la 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 ya la 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 la, tini la 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 la, tini la 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 la, tini la 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 ya la la la.
A good friend of Ariel Zichrono Livracha, Rabbi Stewart, is going to say the Kalmole. Would everyone please rise?
Eile mole rachamim, shochein b'amromim. Amsei minucha nichona, al kanfei ashchina, b'malos kedoshim, uteharim ki zahara ki amasirim. Es nishmas Ariel Chaim, ben Ruven Yaakov v'Chasya, shalach li'olamo. Bavur shemishpachto, nasnu sefer Torah, biyad azkaras nishmaso. Bigan Eden tehei menuchaso, L'chein v'lerachamim yasireyo, v'seiser k'nefav yalamim. V'yitzero, v'yitzera chayim es nishmaso, Adonai hu nachalaso, v'yanuach, v'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar amen.
Thank you for all coming. I'm Robert Avrech. I'm Ariel's father. Just a reminder, please turn off your cell phones. And also, we have a guest book in the lobby, and Karen and I would greatly appreciate it if you would all remember to sign. Karen and I debated whether we would speak today, feeling that unlike previous years, today was so close to our hearts. At speaking would turn into weeping. Our brother, Rabbi David Singer, urged us to talk because it is such an important occasion. And so Karen and I worked on this message together, and I hope that I can make it through. Today is a holiday, and we welcome and thank all of you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us. We are thankful that our family has rallied and traveled great distances to share in this tribute. We also acknowledge the absence of Ariel's grandparents, who cherished him and appreciated how special he was. So, today is a mini Matan Torah, a Yom Tov, a Chag, the fulfillment of years of intention and planning. Like every holiday, there are prescribed ceremonies and minhagim, but for us, Ariel's parents, every day is full of celebration as memories of Ariel elevate small moments multiple times a day. Some examples. Every day, as Karen inserts her earphones before her walk, she recalls how happily Ariel listened to Divrei Torah, cherishing his newly invented iPod. Ariel reminded us that the blessing of Asher Yatzar should be recited standing in one spot and not as you walk. Both Ariel's sisters, Lida and Aliza, took this lesson to heart. Consequently, they are devoted to this mitzvah, honoring their brother each and every day. Ariel carried a sefer even for the shortest car ride. He did not want to waste a second of the day. We try to follow his example of avoiding Lashon Hara, which was anathema to him. All it took was one look from him, and we knew we had crossed some meaningful conversation to idle gossip. I prepared the Shabbos candles and set the Shabbos table each Thursday night, as I learned from Ariel that this is something a man should do to help his wife. We evaluate each TV show by the Ariel standard. Would he enjoy it as much as he loved the grittiness of Law & Order and the wry humor of Seinfeld? Recently, Karen binged on Game of Thrones, trying to figure out how to recut it so Ariel can enjoy the spectacle and the drama, minus the schmutz. So today is a chag, a holiday, with special rituals and minhagim. But we are constantly inspired by Ariel's kavana, wit, intellect, and sweetness, even when it is not Chodesh or Shabbat. He inspires us, and the memories stab at our hearts each and every day. Ariel's absence is a tremendous presence. It is my honor to present Ariel's Rav here in the Young Israel Century City, Rabbi Elazar Muskan.
Honored colleagues, my dear Karen, Robert, Lita, Aliza, family, and friends. This past winter in Eretz Yisrael, the following story appeared on social media and was actually picked up and published in the Israeli newspapers. It was written by a French Jew. His name is Meir Ben Chayun, who made Aliyah from France and is now working in Israel as a journalist. The story actually happened in a supermarket called Yochanan in Ramat HaSharon, and it was Friday, right before Shabbat. It was a stormy winter day. An hour before closing on Erev Shabbat, the power went out. The supermarket literally had to be closed down. Customers with their wagons filled with food for Shabbat didn't know what to do. There was no cash register that was working. The manager had to make a quick decision. The manager's name is Tzvi Avraham. He ran around the supermarket. There was no microphone to be used. Electricity was out. And he screamed, "Take your shopping and come back next week and pay." He realized if they didn't take their shopping for them, they wouldn't have anything for Shabbat. It was only opening on Sunday anyhow. About 100 customers, he reported, went out with their purchases without paying. Sunday came. Over 70% came right away to pay for their purchases. Virtually everyone else showed up a few days later. The store manager was interviewed on TV. He could not believe it, he said. He reported that customers, before leaving on Friday, took out their smartphones, took pictures of what they were taking with the barcodes prominently displayed so that they would know what they owed the supermarket. 70% came back on Sunday, the rest during the week. Ben Chayun ends the story. These are his words. Nobody dares say that Israelis are not honest. We came to Eretz Yisrael on Aliyah from France, not only because we wanted to live in the Holy Land, but also because our people are a holy people. I tell you that story because that is the theme of what we're celebrating today. Allow me to explain. There's a halacha mentioned in the Gemara in Gittin, Memhei Amud Beis, and then codified in Shulchan Aruch and in the Rambam. The Rambam codifies it actually in two different places. In Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah, Perek Vav, Halacha Ches, and again he repeats the same halacha in Hilchos Tefillin, Perek Aleph, Halacha Yud Gimel. These are the words in English. A Torah scroll, or tefillin, or a mezuzah, written by a heretic. Who's a heretic? One who does not believe in God or the Torah he is writing, is to be burned. A Torah scroll, tefillin or mezuzah, written by a heretic, is to be burned. When one learns this halacha, one must be shocked. Normally, we don't destroy any document that has God's name in it. We put it in a geniza for burial. However, the Rambam explains in Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah. He says the following: "Mipnei she'eno ma'amin b'kedushas Hashem, v'lo chesavo lishmo, ela shehu ma'aleh b'dato, shezeh kishar hadivarim, u'mitzvah l'sorfo kedei shelo lahaniach shem la'apikorsim, v'lo l'ma'aseim." Since the person who wrote it does not believe in the sanctity of the name of God, and therefore did not write it with the requisite kavanah intent, but merely as any other text he would write, God's name is not sanctified. Indeed, it is a mitzvah to burn it, so to leave no record of heretics and their words. Imagine for a moment. You have two Sifrei Torah in front of you. One was written by a kosher sofer who believed in the Torah and what he was writing. The other was written by an apikoros, somebody who did not believe in a thing. He was an atheist. Physically, they're indistinguishable. One cannot imagine any scientific test that could tell me this one is good and this one is bad. Yet, one will be held in the highest regard. It will be put in our heichal, and we will consider it the holiest object. The other, we're going to go outside and burn. The reason is because holiness is not a property of objects. It's a property of human actions and human intentions. The great 19th and early 20th century halachist and commentator, the great Reb Meir Simcha Midvinsk, forcefully stresses this point. He notes that Har Sinai, which we talked about yesterday in the Parsha, Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, was the site of the greatest revelation of God. And momentarily, it became a very holy place. Nobody could approach it except Moshe Rabbeinu. Yet, what happened as soon as revelation was over? Even animals were permitted to graze on the mountain where revelation took place. Furthermore, the Meshech Chochmah goes on. The first luchos Moshe brought down the mountain were supremely sacred. They were written by God, hewn and written by God himself. Yet, Moshe broke those tablets, and the Israelites could not ever use them. We endow objects. We place objects into the state of holiness. It's through our intentions, our words, our deeds. There is no such thing as ontological holiness, intrinsic sanctity. It's all dependent upon the human being endowing the item with holiness. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the lesson of this Torah dedication. It isn't the Torah per se that is holy. It's your actions, my actions, the sofer's actions that determine if the item is going to be holy. And that's a commitment to a holy life. And that's what makes something holy. Ariel Zichrono Livrocha understood this very well. He lived his life accordingly. Ariel is one of those very few individuals I've ever met that was endowed with the power of transformation. Ariel took life very seriously. And yet, if you really knew Ariel, you knew he had a childlike nature to him as well. He was so innocent, just like a child. He was so sincere, just like a child. His social interactions were ethical and honest to the core. He was never manipulative. He was never cunning. When you spoke to Ariel, he never, ever offered flattery. He didn't try to impress you with anything. And yet, he had so much that was so impressive. He simply transformed each relationship for good. God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was always present in Ariel's life. I'll never forget, on one of my visits to Ariel in the hospital, I walked in one day, and there he was seated at Cedar Sinai in a chair. And he was wearing his tefillin. He had the biggest smile on his face. Karen turned to me and she said, Rabbi, he's smiling because this is the first day in many weeks that he was able to put on tefillin. When it came to learning Torah, it wasn't just an intellectual exercise. Ariel was blessed with a phenomenal intellect. But for him, Torah was a spiritual dialogue with the Almighty himself. Ariel was extremely inquisitive in his learning. He wasn't a shallow Ben Torah. Rather, he was a man of iron discipline in his intellectual sphere. But I remember once when I visited him in his home, it was right before one of his hospitalizations. We were talking, and suddenly he burst into tears. I didn't know what I did. I would never want Ariel to cry. He turned to me, and I see this in my memory. He said, Rabbi, I can't follow the conversation. I'm not able to understand the Torah that you're telling me. He cried because he felt he couldn't have a clear dialogue with HaKadosh Baruch Hu at that very moment. Finally, Ariel had so much to be proud of. He really did. But never did you sense a feeling of hubris in his presence. Never. He was humble to the core, in the true sense of the word. And this manifested itself in his great tolerance for everyone. Whoever would teach him Torah, he loved that person. It didn't matter how you were dressed. It didn't matter if you wore a hat or if you wore a knitted kippah. You were teaching him Torah. Torah was Torah in his eyes. He loved the seriousness of Yeshiva Gedola. He loved it, Rabbi. He really did. And I got to tell you, he loved this shul. He loved this shul. He loved davening, not in a yeshivish separate minyan, not Ariel. Ariel loved davening with balabata, with people who went to work day in, day out. He loved this minyan. He came to the main minyan. He would never leave before the Devar Torah, the drasha. He wanted to hear the drasha. He came back Shabbos afternoon to the shir. Whatever shir I gave, he was there, in particular, the Pirkei Avos shiurim. He was there. His thirst for knowledge wasn't limited to sacred texts. He realized Chazal's statement of Chochma Bagoyim Tamin, that there is great wisdom in the world. He cherished his tutorial in the best of Western civilization that his father arranged for him. He had an appreciation for art. He had an appreciation for poetry. He respected wisdom in all of its guises. I would be remiss if I didn't mention his special relationship with his family. Karen, Robert, I'm an outsider looking in. I'm your rabbi. I'm not family. I can tell you emes. Emes is, he adored his parents. He respected you so much. He respected your talent. He respected your accomplishments. He was the proudest son a parent could have. His sisters, he loved you. He found love in your relationship so meaningful. He revered his grandparents. He had two grandfathers who were Rabbonim Talmidei Chachamim. He loved the opportunity to engage in conversations with his two rabbinic grandfathers. He loved it. I watched it. I witnessed it. Today, Robert, yes, today's a chag. I forgot to tell you a halacha. Today, you're not even supposed to say tachanu. But you said it. It's okay. Today is a chag for you. That's why there's a Suda. It's a Yom Tov. We all feel the presence of Ariel right here in this shul. Because Ariel understood that Sefer Torah is not holy because of its parchment. It's holy because a human being endowed it with holiness. And Ariel lived his life accordingly. Chazal tell us, you're a fool if you only stand up for a Sefer Torah and don't stand up for a Talmud Chacham. When Ariel would walk in, we'd have a chiyuv to stand up for him. So today, we had a Sefer Torah, but his neshama's there. It really is. So when we put the Sefer Torah in our heichal behind me, his neshama's there. So celebrate, Karen, celebrate Robert, and his sisters and his aunts and his uncles and his cousins. You've all come from far. It means a lot to all of us celebrating with you today, because Ariel taught us it's not the parchment, it's what we do in endowing the parchment with Kedusha. May Ariel's memory be an inspiration for all of us. Amen.
It's my honor to present Karen's brother, my brother-in-law, Rabbi David Singer from Efrat.
Morning, everyone. One of the reasons I pressed Robert and Karen to speak was because I was hoping they would take my slot, especially since I knew I was following Rabbi Muskan, and that was so comprehensive. I purposely did not write down my remarks because I knew I'd have to call an audible and change things around. Anyway, I feel a little bit here like the Israeli populace before the vote. I don't know whether to go left, center, or to the right. And I look to the right, and of course I see my brother-in-law, Rabbi Stephen Przansky, so it all makes sense. I found this great app called sermon.com, so I'm going to use that. I'm joking, but it's a good idea, I thought. I first want to thank Karen and Robert for a beautiful, beautiful tribute to Ariel today. And I don't know if this was the first in history, but it was an extended holiday Hachnasas Sefer weekend, which I'm sure the caterers would love to make a popular trend. But everything was done with such style, grace, kavod, from Thursday, the finishing of the writing of the Sefer Torah, to till this moment. It just, everything is beautiful, and my heart is, as I said, I wasn't sure whether this is a chag or bittersweet, but I just feel joy for the fact that the family is together like this. Ariel, I remember, and I'll mention his bar mitzvah soon, he was excited about laning his pasha, but I think what he was most excited was having the family together in one place, and it's something that's very special. So thank you, Karen and Robert, for that. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the young Israel, Rabbi Muskan in particular, and his wife for everything that you did for Ariel and for Karen and Robert, and to the Hillel community and Yeshiva Gedola and Eula. Some of you may know that, given that I live in Israel, and I'm sure many of you encountered people that live in Israel, they tend to be a bit zealous getting others to join them. I'm one of those. And I've been very, very tough on Karen and Robert in the past, but when I come out to California and LA, I understand what keeps them here. And there's a tremendous amount of love and caring and support and friendship. So I've come up with a solution. I'm not going to bother them anymore. I'm going to bother everybody else here. So everybody has to go. I thought that would be best is we start a new Ramat Los Angeles or Ramat Beverly. And for Robert and Karen, it could be right next to Ramat Trump, so you feel very comfortable there. That's our actual place, in case you didn't know. It's in the Golan. Nobody lives there yet, but it exists. If you can't get Greenland, you got the Golan. That's fine. The last time I spoke publicly was many, many Shmitot ago at Ariel's bar mitzvah. And I remember what I said to Ariel then. It was Pashat HaChodesh, and I spoke about the famous midrash. Apparently Moshe could not wrap his mind around the concept of sanctifying the moon. He couldn't understand exactly what the moon should look like at that particular moment in the phases of the moon that is the new moon, when it should be sanctified. So God, the greatest chavrusa ever, took him outside and said, Kazeh re'eh v'kadesh. You should see it like this, and you should sanctify it. And I spoke then about the tangibility of mitzvos, that we as Jews don't have an abstract religion. We have a very real religion. It's something that you could point to, as when we lift the Torah, V'zos HaTorah. That is something, Zeh HaKatan Gadol Yiyeh. We constantly point. It reminds me when I was a kid, my Hebrew then was almost as bad as it was. I live in Efrat, so you have to excuse me. Hebrew is not our first language. I would go to the makolet when my parents, Aleim HaSholem, would go send me to the makolet and go shopping. And I would go, Ani Rotzeh Zeh, V'zeh, V'zeh, V'zeh. It got it done. But that's our religion. It's tangible. And Ariel understood this. He lived this. To him, Torah was life. Torah was real. Torah was not abstract. But today I want to focus on a different part of the Midrash that I thought about the other day. The language is strange. The Midrash says, kazeh, like this, which means that Moshe is already doing what? Looking at it. Then it says, Re'eh, look at it, v'kadesh. It should say, Re'eh kazeh v'kadesh. That you should look at this and sanctify it. So in order to understand why it's like that, I'm going to recall a sermon of my father. Rabbi Muskan mentioned my saintly father, Alav Hashalom, Rabbi Pinchas Singer, and I need to mention my mother, Cyril. Is there some water? My father, it's probably about 35, 40 years ago, spoke on this Pasha, Pashas Re'eh, which is the word Re'eh, and explained that there are people that go through life looking but not seeing. So what does that mean? Sight, seeing, is a physiological function. Rays of light go through the lens, are captured by the retina, and then there are these electronic impulses that go to the optic nerve and then onto the brain. There's also seeing, which means understanding. Do you ever hear somebody says, instead of saying, I got it, he says, I see. In many, many different languages, the word see means to understand. So what God was telling is look at the moon and understand it, see it, delve into it. The word insight is the ability, is intuitive method of understanding. That's what God is telling Moshe. You have to do more than superficial looking, you have to see. Ariel, although I'll say he was not a looker, he was a looker in that he was very handsome, but he didn't do anything superficially. And Robert and Rabbi Muskan touched on this. Everything had depth. And this started at a very, very young age. I remember when Robert and Karen were still living in Brooklyn. Yes, they lived in Brooklyn, believe it or not. Ariel's favorite words were not just why, as every child tends to ask, why? It was how. He wanted to understand everything. And this is one of his most famous toys, and I can't believe, Rabbi Muskan, you touched on it, about transformation. Karen, do you remember his favorite toy? Transformer. I don't know, does everybody here know what a transformer is? Okay. It's interesting, this transformer toy was handed down to my son, and now my grandson is playing with it. A transformer is something that you see. You could look at it superficially, and it's a robot. And then if you hold it, examine it, manipulate it, it turns into something else. And that's what you said Ariel was a transformer, with transformation. That's what he did with everything. I'll give you some examples. Torah. For the most part, and I'm guilty of this as well, we learn Torah at a very young age, and we have a superficial understanding of Torah. And it takes a lot of work as an adult to change that. But Ariel was never like that. His Torah always had depth. It always had understanding. It always had insight. He was a seer. He was one who saw, but not one that looked. His davening was, I'll just mention something, just when we're talking about davening. You had mentioned about Ariel and how he was pained, that was enjoyed that he was able to have tefillin on, and how he enjoyed davening in the Young Israel minyan as opposed to yeshiva. I think I know where he got that. I grew up, my father saying, first of all, he thinks that all yeshivas should have the children daven in regular shuls during the week so that the people see him, so they set an example. And also my father, the greatest pain he had when he was going through cancer was that he couldn't learn. And he would cry because he could not learn. So it's in the blood. But when it came to Ariel's davening, he never rushed through anything. I never saw him do a quick Shemona Esrei, a quick anything. Every word was deliberate. Every word was with understanding. And you mentioned his interpersonal relationships. Same thing. Most of us, when we talk to people, we're doing two things. We're either looking for the next person to talk to, or we're thinking about how we could slip something in about ourselves. And Ariel was never like that. He looked at you, he listened, he had true interest in who you were and what you were, and how he could interact with you. And finally, and this he probably got from my father as well, food. He loved food. He loved coming to our house when we lived in Muncie. I remember him coming for sukkahs. He never scarfed down food. I always say to people that you go to some shuls and they're laning a mile a minute. It just, by the time I'm up to, and I not a slow davener, by the time I'm up to the first, end of the first bracha of Shemona Esrei, they're already taking 3 steps back. I don't understand it. And I always say, would they go into a restaurant, a gourmet restaurant, order all 3 courses and finish it in 2.5 minutes and say to the waiter, thank you, I'm out. So Ariel understood this message. And when he ate food, he took his time. He was like a master chef. That he would put the food in his mouth and he would feel with his palate and his taste buds the taste of it. And then he would turn to Ilana and say, this is delicious. How do you make it? You know, I don't know if he ever cooked anything in his life, but he was interested because he was never superficial. He had that depth and understanding. It's interesting, in the Hebrew word for proof is ra'ayah, which comes from the shorish of ra'eh. And we say that a proof is so clear you could see it. But it's more than that. A proof is something that has understanding, intuitive understanding, intellect combined. Everything, when you see it, it has to be true. And in Kabbalah, they say that it's called a ra'ayah because it's the same letters as aryeh, a lion. It has strength. You're not going to fight with it. It's there. It's a proof. It's interesting. Ariel is Ari. He was a lion. You see on his bencher and all the symbols of the lion because he had the power of Re'eh. And I realized that he lived not only the midrash of Zeh, but he was Kazeh. He made mitzvahs tangible. Re'eh, he understood them. V'kadesh, and he sanctified them. Many don't know this, but he's sort of my muse. Whenever I think about how I should interact with somebody, how I should learn, how I should daven, I think of Ariel. And I miss him every day. And just recently, Ariel was reinterred in Bet Shemesh next to my parents. My parents had, as I said, a very special bond with Ariel. And when we lost Ariel physically, they had a void in their heart that was so painful. It never went away to the day they died. But now when I visit the Kfarim and see them together and know that they've been reunified in a different realm, it brings me solace. So let's celebrate today, Ariel. Let's understand from him not only the Zeh, not only the Re'eh, but the V'kadesh, the sanctification as well. Thank you.
It's my honor to present our final speaker, Rabbi Eliezer Gross, who's very close to Ariel. He's the dean of Yeshiva Gedola.
B'shus Rav, b'shus HaMishpacha, b'shus all of the people that came here today for the simcha of the Achnasas Sefer Torah, and at the same time coming together with the Zichronos of Ariel Chaim. I'd like to begin with a machshava that is said over in a very, very difficult parsha in the Torah. The Torah talks about the passing of Yaakov Avinu, tremendous tragedy. And the pasuk says, "Vayigva v'Yosef el Amov," and the Torah doesn't mention the fact that Yaakov Avinu passed away, that he died. And Rashi brings down Yaakov Avinu lo meis. It's true. It's a good point. The Torah talks about the passing of Yaakov Avinu, but the term meis, that he died, that term is never used when discussing Yaakov Avinu. And the question is, of course, all the Mefarshim talk about it. What exactly is the explanation of this Chazal? How are we to understand this, and what are we supposed to take from this? And I'd like to share with the Olam the pshat of the Maharal, with the explanation that I once heard from Rabbi Aaron Kotler, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. We know that we live in Golus now for thousands of years. And there is a tremendous responsibility in every single generation that comes into this world, no matter where we are in Golus, whether we're here in Europe, one of the farthest countries. We have a tremendous responsibility to keep up that Messiah from generation to generation. And how does a person keep up that Messiah, that tradition? He himself, of course, must practice what's right, but he also has to inspire others to be able to follow the Messiah that we have from generation to generation. And a person with his actions, with his words, has the ability to inspire others. And so, when Mashiach will come, b'mheira b'yameinu, there are some people that Mashiach is going to call forth, and they're going to show these people. Do you see all of these people who are learning, who are davening? It's to your credit. You inspired them. You showed them through your actions, and somehow you were able to communicate with their neshama, with their heart, and to inspire them to continue on this Messiah from generation to generation. Interesting. A person would be shocked. I never saw this person. I never spoke to this person. How could I have credit for what this person is doing? Yes, but you inspired Ruvain, who inspired as the Shimon, who inspired Levi. And it's all to your credit, because if you would not have inspired this original person, so the inspiration that went on from generation to generation never would have happened. The Gemara is telling us, Yaakov lo meis. It's true, there was a Levaya, and it's true that there was many tears that were shed. And it's true that there was Avelis that was practiced at that time. But Yaakov lo meis, because the teachings of Yaakov, the inspiration that Yaakov had on his children, was passed down from generation to generation. His teachings, his inspirations, that remains. And therefore, the concept of Misa, the concept of death, cannot be used when we're talking about Yaakov Avinu. And so Rabbi Aaron Kotler, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, used to tell us that there are people on this world who have such an ability, have such a koyach, and they must be aware of this because it's a tremendous responsibility. They can inspire others. They have the ability to speak to the heart of other people and to the minds of other people. And this inspiration that they give over in their generation amongst the people that they know could continue on for generation to generation. And that inspiration, when Mashiach is going to come, well, he's going to be called forth. This is all to your credit. It's because of your efforts, the effort that you put in order to see to it that these people carry on the Messiah of Klal Yisrael, that I am here today, Mashiach Tzidkenu. Many years ago, 16 years ago, there was a levaya that took place with Choshev Talmud of the yeshiva. There were many, many tears that were shed. There was avelus. Everybody felt the tremendous tzar. And until today, when I speak to Ariel's chaverim, speak to his rabbeim, and everybody thinks back to those days with such a feeling of sadness that's somehow impossible to go away. But my Rev Rabbi say, Ariel loy meis. The effect, the encouragement, the inspiration that came from Ariel to every one of his chaverim till today is carried over. And I must admit, when I was asked to speak, and I knew what I wanted to say, but I figured coming from the yeshiva, I'm representing his chaverim, I'm representing the other rabbeim. What would they like me to say? And they told me over different things that I guess we would look at it as being not such tremendous things. But there was so much heart, so much soul, so much emes that was put into every one of those actions that until today they remember, and until today they feel that inspiration. I just want to mention a few examples. Now, Ariel Nebuch was in the hospital, but he felt he's in the hospital, but he wants to know the shiur. He wants to know what the Rebbe is teaching. How is he going to know this? And he cried to the boys in his class, what's going to be? How am I going to be able to follow the shiur? So every day, after lunch, a couple of boys would hop on their bikes. They would charge down to the hospital, made a tape recording of the shiur. They would charge down to the hospital in order to give over to Ariel a copy of the shiur that he should be able to keep up with the shiur that's being given, because he wanted to be involved in the learning of the Torah. And you can well imagine that the happiness that he felt, the satisfaction, it's difficult to describe. Being in the hospital with such pain, the simcha that it brought to his heart of hearing the shiur, learning Torah, was so inspiring to his chaverim that his chaverim until today remember this. And they tell me, you think for a moment that perhaps we're not going to put all of our effort into learning of Torah? Do you know what Ariel went through in order to learn even a moment of Torah? How could we not follow his example? Not only did he love to learn, but if he was able to explain to somebody else Torah, if he was able to speak to somebody else, and he often did this, he would take a boy that perhaps wasn't as as bright as the typical boy, you might say, in Torah. And he was able to get through to him, explain to him, give him the explanation of the words of the Torah. And he would see the smile that would break out on this boy's face that would bring him the greatest simcha. Everybody that had to do with Ariel Chaim felt the beauty of his neshama and somehow or another wanted to be connected with him. I think this more or less everybody heard. Ariel was not the life of the party, like they say. That wasn't his type at all. But on a typical Shabbos, when he was in the hospital, there were 20 Bachrim that used to walk to the hospital, over a half-hour walk, 40-minute walk, would walk to the hospital, just to spend Shabbos with Ariel. It's unbelievable. And when you asked them, you went, well, they said, Ariel, the neshama of Ariel, the feeling that he has, the kedusha that's in his neshama, we want to be with Ariel. His tefillah was full of heart. And we saw with his tefillah how he was able to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with every single word that he said. And once again, he inspired everybody around him. And I must say, he inspired even the Rabbeim to dedicate themselves to Avodas Hashem, to Torah, and to Tefillah. And his inspiration goes on till today. My Reverend Rabbi Singer, the way I understand it, that 16 years ago was a very, very sad day, without a doubt. However, Ariel Chaim loimes, the inspiration that he left over with his Rabbeim, with his friends, with the yeshiva, is with us till today. And Be'ez Hashem Yisborach, today, tomorrow, when Mashiach comes, he's going to call Ariel forward. Ariel, you see, all of the Torah that spread, this one, that one, you deserve a lot of the credit because of the way of the heart and the soul and the mind that you put into Avodas Hashem. Coming here today and hearing how a Sefer Torah dedicated to his memory, you really and truly understand that this is the most appropriate thing that could possibly be. A Sefer Torah symbolizes what Ariel was all about. Where we be Zeicha, together with Ariel Chaim, the Bias HaMashiach, b'mehera b'yameinu, Amen.
This concludes our program. Once again, Karen and I, Lita and Aliza, thank you all for coming. It means a lot to us. You're all invited to brunch in the social hall.